Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Williams with Armor Insurance Agency located right here in Miles City, Montana. And today we are talking about uninsured drivers in Montana. If you're one of them, you need to know what's in this video. Now, you probably already know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The state of Montana mandates that every person operating a motor vehicle on the state's highways must maintain a continuous liability policy for their motor vehicle. Well, if you didn't know it, now you do. I'm going to give you a little bit more trivia as well. And that trivia is really in the state of Montana, there are approximately 2 million vehicles that are registered. That's almost twice as many as the number of people in the state. If you think about it, of that 2 million cars that are out driving on Montana highways, about 1 in 12 or 8.5% do not have insurance for their vehicle. Now, I guess we're doing a little bit better than the rest of the country because the rest of the country is around 14%. So if you leave the state of Montana, odds are you're more likely to have an encounter with someone that doesn't have insurance. But in the state of Montana, still 1 in 12 is a significant number. And in and of itself, this should be a strong motivator to get people to want uninsured or underinsured coverage, but that's not the topic for today. The topic is geared towards the individuals who are out there who do not have insurance for their vehicles currently. And so if you're ready, let's get started. Listen, do you hear that? That is a warning bell. And that bell is telling us that the risks are real. Uninsured drivers are taking a huge risk when they drive on Montana highways without insurance coverage. Since 1951, Montana has had the requirement of the minimum liability coverage. It really wasn't until 1979 when the punitive part or punishment part came into effect. But since then, it's turned into really big business for the state bureaucratic apparatchik and law enforcement. Now, there's 4 main things you're going to want to tuck away in this law. Number 1, Montana is an at-fault state, which means if you caused it, you're going to pay for it, period. And the courts aren't going to care what they do to you to make you pay for it. So if you have any notion in your head that the courts are going to be fair, reasonable, or just, or care about, what happens to you, you better get rid of that notion right now. They're not going to care. They turn good people into criminals every single day. Number 2, all registered vehicles, unless they're exempted, all registered vehicles that drive on Montana highways must have this coverage. If you don't have that coverage, then you are being non-compliant. And if you are being non-compliant, there are penalties. It starts with fees, then it goes to suspension of your license, and then potentially jail time. So in the long run, driving uninsured can result in long-lasting financial repercussions and the potential for prolonged legal repercussions, neither of which you want. So we're going to get into all of this, and we're going to start with Montana law, and that is coming up next. Driving in Montana without insurance poses significant risks for the uninsured driver because the penalties escalate sharply with repeated offenses. For your first offense, there's a fine. The fine is $250 or $500, whatever the judge decides. For the second offense, the fine is $350. For a third or subsequent offense, then it's a $500 fine and or up to 10 days in jail. But the punishment doesn't stop there. The long-term consequences for uninsured drivers in Montana is significant. The additional consequences extend far beyond the immediate legal penalties, and they can include vehicle registration suspension, restricted driving privileges, difficulty obtaining insurance in the future, and if you are able to get insurance in the future, the premium will be significantly higher. So let's talk about it. Let's address the vehicle registration suspension. Your vehicle registration will undergo immediate suspension upon the second or subsequent conviction for noncompliance. Your registration cannot be reinstated until you provide proof of insurance, and you're going to have to pay for the replacement license plate and the registration decal. Let's talk about the restricted driving privileges. These are reserved for repeat offenses, so the second or subsequent offense. The court can issue the restricted driving. What that means is you could be limited to driving solely for employment purposes. The restrictions can last from 90 to 180 days, depending on the offense frequency. And what this does is put severe limitations on your personal and family vehicle use. So a minute ago, I stated that if you had a vehicle registration suspension, before it could be reinstated, you were going to have to find insurance. The problem is that if it got suspended, you're going to have a problem finding insurance. It becomes very difficult to find a carrier that is willing to cover you because the carriers will typically view this sort of situation as a high risk behavior, and they're likely going to deny coverage from the standard insurance providers, and you may be forced to seek out the high risk insurance providers, and that tends to be expensive. Let's talk about those significantly higher insurance premiums. Now, the uninsured driving violations can increase your insurance rates by somewhere between 20 to 50%. And those rate increases can persist for 3 to 5 years. In addition to that, there are potentially more surcharges for repeated violations. And the total long-term cost can exceed thousands of dollars in additional premium. So while the legal and administrative consequences for uninsured drivers are severe, there's a lot of additional hidden costs that have a lasting impact on your financial well-being. So if we're really trying to address what are the hidden costs of uninsured driving? If you're in an accident, you have personal liability for the accident damages. If somebody was hurt, ended up in the hospital, you got to pay for it. And any damage to any property, you'll have to pay for it out of pocket. The legal fees are going to be out of pocket. And if you end up losing wages because you're in court, well, that's out of pocket too. The long-term impact on your driving record and your insurability, well, that's all going to be out of your pocket as well. All right, I want to touch on the Montana Insurance Verification System. And this is an automated system that was implemented by the Montana Motor Vehicle Division to verify the insurance status of vehicles registered in Montana. And it uses information from the Montana vehicle registration records as well as from the insurance companies, and it gives them access to up-to-date information, data about you. What I am telling you is that before they have pulled you over, they already know if you have insurance or not on the vehicle. So don't try to lie to them and say, oh, well, I just don't have it in the car. They already know. This system works 24/7. And there's literally no flying under the radar. So if you're uninsured, you're likely to get caught. So a final thought, uninsured drivers in Montana face risks that are just not worth taking. Okay, folks, this is the last stop. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed putting it together. If you're considering purchasing car insurance, give us a call here at Armor Insurance Agency. We're in Miles City, Montana, but we can handle policies all throughout the state of Montana. Now, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And that's all I got for today. Bye now.